if you'd be so kind.
Conscious endeavor. I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by a conscious endeavor. It is something to be able to paint a particular picture or to carve a statue, and so to make a few objects beautiful. But it is far more glorious to carve and paint the very atmosphere and medium through which we look, which morally we can do, to affect the quality of the day that is the highest of arts. Henry David Thoreau.
Thank you so much, Diana. Welcome everyone to today's Gems from the Wisdom Traditions, a conversation circle. And I'd like to just be very recognizing of all who have joined us in this circle, and just for taking the time on a Memorial Day weekend to give our thought and hearts to this idea of what is our purpose. We're in the year, in the Still and Moving Center Almanac, of being truly human. Perhaps we could look at the question from that standpoint, being truly human. What is our purpose? And perhaps this quote that's on this back of the Still and Moving Center Almanac that Diana read for us, talking about carving and painting the very atmosphere and medium through which we look, that we can do. Perhaps that has something to do with our overall purpose. Our speaker for today is Professor Veena Howard. Dr. Howard is a professor at Fresno State University. She is the endowed chair in Jain and Hindu studies for Fresno State University. She's also the director of the new Gandhi Center. Inner Peace and Sarvodaya is the subtitle of that center, which is very appropriate to Gandhi. So she's going to today, from both the Jain and Hindu traditions, look from a Gandhian perspective at this question of what is our purpose, so that we can start conversing amongst ourselves about that. So Veena, I hand it over to you. Oh, I wanted to tell everybody too that she's not that kind of professor who just stands up there and lectures to you and spends 3 minutes on your final exam maximum and leaves. She's one of those kind of professors who really cares about her students, making life connections, finding some of their life purpose through these kinds of studies of looking at a human being like Gandhi and what he did. So I think that's important for us to know.
Thank you, Renee, and good to see you, all of you. So I don't want to make it a lecture. I always tell my students that it's not a good thing that I'm lecturing at you, lecturing to you. So please stop me as we are conversing and bring your ideas. Let's consider it as a circle. And then like we're sitting in a circle. I had an issue in my class this semester. Students forgot how to share their thoughts because of the pandemic, and we didn't come together in a room. And so they were kind of shy or didn't know how to really engage with conversation. So I started making these circles. And I said, everyone will have to say something, everyone. And so here we are, everyone will have to say something because the purpose is something, the question is so pertinent that we all are thinking about it. It's not academic or heady question. It is from the heart. It's about our purpose. Mm-hmm. So my question always comes with this, why and how some people can find their purpose so easily and others struggle with that. And, even their adulthood and, as we grow older, we still are thinking how we can go about with our life and what's meaning in life, what's purpose in life. So Jain and Hindu texts give guidance to how to find your purpose. I think a lot of scriptures do, a lot of philosophical texts do. So before I begin to just talking about Jain and Hinduism, how many of you know much about Jainism? Because I think, Renee, isn't the first time you're covering Jainism?
It is. Yours is the first presentation from the Jain perspective.
Anyone knows, I've studied a little bit about Jainism? I'm sure people have, a bunch. So, but I'm going to give, for those who don't know, just a 3-minute background. So both Jain and Hindu traditions arose in India, on the Indian subcontinent. And Jainism is not very well known in the West because it is only have 5 to 6 million adherents all over the world. So it is a tiny island in the sea of Hinduism, what I call it. And it's been coexisting together, the both Hindu and Jain traditions, for over 2 millennia, 6th century BCE. The latest Jain teacher, Tirthankara Mahavir, Bhagwan Mahavir, was born around 6th century BCE, and he was contemporary of the Buddha. So Buddhism, where everyone knows about, most of the United States people, when I ask my students, everybody knows about Buddhism and Jainism, there's maybe 1 hand or 2 hands. They might have heard the name, but they don't know much about it. Because Jainism is not a missionary religion like Buddhism became. And it also, I will give you just a couple of reasons why it didn't go out. But now there is a Jain community in the United States have taken this as their purpose to really teach Jainism in the universities in academic settings. So over 20 lectureship, endowed chairs, centers, educational programs have been funded by Jain philanthropists. And they, from University of Chicago to many universities in California, to the East Coast, to Europe. And so the Jainism is coming, the word is being known because the philosophy is very profound, but was very lesser known tradition. So for the last 10 years, 12 years, the Jain, really lay people have come together that they found their purpose to really teach and I won't call it a spread Jainism, but really learn about the philosophy and practices of Jainism. So Jainism began around maybe at least 800 or 900 BCE. So, and could be older. I think that's what the, records, historical records, but it seems according to Jain texts, it's much older than 800 BCE. And there is a line of 24 teachers called Tirthankaras. Tirthankara is a crossing builder, the one who goes from this side of samsara to the other, and who has seen the path to reach realization, self-realization. So there is no personal God in Jainism. So Jainism does not believe, it's a kind of scientific, doesn't say there is a creator God. They think that the Jainism thinks that world is coming and going forever. It's more like a scientific idea. And it is our goal is to really purify our souls in order to attain that godlike, luminous state. And that is through purifying ourselves. And that's the purpose is built in the teachings of Jainism, that everything what we do in life, every action, every thought, every word that we speak creates karmas. Can be good karmas, not so good karmas, okay karmas, or bad karmas. So Jainism is very interesting about giving the colors to karmas, that if you do meritorious acts, you make luminous, white, pure karmas. If you do kind of muddy, murky, gray karmas, and so on and so forth. But the one virtue or one principle that stands in the center of Jainism is ahimsa, on nonviolence. Nonviolence is that humans, again, talking about human purpose, we understand how it feels like when someone harms us. We also have the ability to understand that how one might feel when we harm them or someone else harms them. So right now, when we hear the news, and even though atrocious acts are happening sometimes far away, but we all feel it because it is a harm that's been done, because we can feel it. But an animal, according to Jainism, won't be able to have that kind of sensibility or sensitivity to understand that, because we can reflect on ourselves. So what Jainism does, and Jainism sees the violence all around us, from creatures to microorganisms to humans. So the central core of Jain tradition is practice or dharma or duty or purpose of practicing ahimsa or nonviolence. And nonviolence is really laid out in very, very minute, very intricate way. What is nonviolence means? Is that nonviolence I say bad words to someone? Is that or violence, or is it violence that when I eat non-vegetarian food? Is that violence that if I'm hearing some words that could be harmful to others? So it's a very, very intricate way that Jainism have built this system of almost like a simplifying the purpose of life, which is very complicated in itself because it hinges on nonviolence, right? Gandhi said, living means killing. No matter how much we try to avoid harming, we do harm. Let it be 1 cent products like carrots and potatoes and vegetarian, they're alive, even we are harming them. So a lot of humility comes. Since I started to study Jainism, it's really, I used to think, oh, I'm vegetarian, I don't try not to harm people, I'm good. But after studying Jainism, I feel very humble that how much violence we cause each day. And for Jainism, the nonviolence is connected with 3 things. One is, of course, straight out non-harming. Live your life in a way that its least harm is done. You know, imagine if people live Jain style, then we won't have too big a problem with our environmental crisis right now. We really took care of the environment, right? Because it's a living environment. And the second is Jainism is connected to nonviolence is aparigraha, which is non-hoarding, non-possession. So for the monks and nuns, not possessing very too much material things, but for householders, living simply. Think about connection with, as we will discuss that in our conversation circle. And the third is that reality is perceived differently by different people. So it is more epistemological, or ways of seeing, ways of knowing. We can do violence toward people saying, oh, I am right, you're wrong. I'm just right. You're just wrong. Admit it. So much comes in our culture, our world, not giving credence and respect to other people's perspective. Not saying, if somebody says in the class something, I say, oh, you're just absolutely wrong. You didn't get the reading. Come on, do your reading tomorrow. No, oh, you have a point, or bring it in a nonviolent way to that point. So they gave it this, Jainism has this story of 6 blind men or 5 blind men, an elephant, and each one of is touching the different part of the elephant's body, and they think they are the one who got the hold of the truth. So all the religious wars that go on today's world or political wars is based off, it's considered violence, because there are many sides people are seeing reality. And if we can bring it, all different opinions together, then we'll have an elephant. But as long as I'm fighting, or elephant is a trunk, elephant is a rope, or elephant is a fan, then we are just fighting. Neither one of us have the full reality of you. And that can be applied to politics, that can be applied to our many, many situations, to giving the person a right to hold on to their reality. And sometimes that reality might be misguided. So how do we speak then? The nonviolent speaking, nonviolent way to approach works. Now I'm going to bring it to Hinduism. So where Jainism kind of very simplified way, not too simplified, but very complicated, right? It's very difficult to follow the path of nonviolence. Hinduism, on the other hand, have the idea of dharma, or the right duty, sacred path. There is a purpose, and then there is a sacred purpose, according to this tradition. So they talked about the four purposes of life, four aims of life. The one is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma is doing right. Dharma is helping others. When I open the door for someone, makes me feel happy. When I help someone who is needy, that makes me happy. If I do charitable works, makes me happy. Deep happy, not just happy. That's dharma. That's, we all humans yearn for that. Artha is wealth, resources. We have resources right now that how many of us are 16 on the Zoom, we have computers or phones, we are able to zoom in, right? So artha, the money is not an evil thing in Hinduism. It is, but it is really called purushartha, is for the sake of the one who lives in the body, the sake of the one who lives in this body. The money has no value sitting in a safe unless it is used for purposes, buying food, buying a gift, have a house, giving it to others. That's for the sake. Its only value is that when we use it for the right dharma purpose. And kama, which is Sanskrit term for desire, it includes sensual desires as well. So according to Hinduism, when we are in the student age, we should just focus on studying. But in the householder age, when we have, spouse and, might be children, and it's good to enjoy your life. So it's not an evil thing. And then it goes into the third stage of life where one becomes more spending time to giving back to the community. Don't think about so much. And the last one is moksha, which is the letting go. Now it's time to let go. Otherwise, we will be made to let go, right? Like my mom was, when she grew in her 80s, she goes, okay, I'm going to start giving away jewelry to the children, the grandchildren, everything, just let go, let go, let go. That when she passed away, there's not much to let go, but already most of it was gone, given to charity or people or friends or whatever. So letting go. So those are the four aims of life in Hinduism. Now, that was traditional understanding, how I understand it. How do I know? I was talking to my daughter, I said, how do we know your purpose? Some people just flow with it, and some people have just so struggling with that. So I was thinking about it. So it's not a scripted talk I'm giving you. I'm thinking through it with you. So I hope you will help me also. So there are three principles in Hinduism called Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. Satyam is truth. Shivam is what is good, well-being. Sundaram is beauty. So how I want to think about purpose, or action to action, not like a mega purpose. Oh, I found my purpose. Oh, I'm done now. It's great. No, it's like an action to action. which is always has to be aligned with what is right, what is true, what is truth, what Gandhi called it satyagraha, for his right action, truthful action, love action. The second is Shivam. So, you talk about Lord Shiva, but it really is that task, is that what I'm going to do is good for the community, good for my family, good for my inner being? What is right thing to do? What's the thing that is bring deep joy and helps my community, my people, my friends? I don't just do because I thought it was right. And the last is the Sundaram, which is the beautiful. So beautiful here is, of course, we understand beautiful. When we go out at Renee's house and beautiful, nobody will say, oh, what an ugly view in Hawaii, what an ocean, ew, green ocean is, beauty. We know, we all humans have this idea of what beautiful is. From very early on, we just attracted to nature. We are attracted to these ideas, thoughts that are beautiful. And what we do has to be also aesthetically pleasing, aesthetically beautiful in relationships, in actions, in business, in studying, in teaching, how we package ourselves in when we bring our lecture to students, how we can make it beautiful. A lot of us, we don't think about that, right? And this is all coming out thanks to Renee. I've been really meditating on this topic. How do you find your purpose? Yes, Hinduism gave the guidelines and Jainism said nonviolence. But I am in the United States. I'm talking to you all. So I always think about students when I'm going to talk about this. We have a one day on these 4 aims of life in Hinduism. So now coming back to Jainism. So Jainism is the nonviolence is Satyam Shivam Sundaram. It is truth, respecting the life of all beings to best of our ability, working toward it. Shivam, not only goodness for me and my community, but animal kingdom, environment, earth, beings of the earth, and Sundaram. And that is the nonviolence, according to Jainism, uplifts the beauty, uplifts the inner beauty, and bring it into the beauty that comes for living a right life, beauty that comes from living a nonviolent lifestyle. I see Jain monks barefoot, only one cotton, cloth, mouths are tied with the, we call it masks, right, because of pandemic. So I'm going to end with just the last sentence and then we can have a conversation. So I asked my students, here pandemic comes, we all had masks, and I was teaching Jainism. I said, why are we wearing masks? Oh, because we don't want to get sick. I said, because you don't want to get hurt by this little tiny virus that may come through your mouth and nose. Yes. I said, Jane's been wearing masks for thousands of years. You know why? No. I said, because they didn't want to harm the virus, the bacteria, the microorganism. But by doing that, they're saving themselves and they're saving the bacteria both. So it's a win-win situation. When you have nonviolence, then it's not a one-way street. It is you get back Satyam Shivam Sundaram, the truth, goodness, wellness, and beauty. So open to conversation. Thank you. Yes, David.
Oh, thank you so much, Veena. As always, you inspire and uplift. I'm in a course this semester called Career Development, which is really about finding your purpose, finding your life work. And each week we're looking into the news to see what's happening around the field of career development and this whole topic. Because curiously enough, fresh off the presses yesterday, Joe Biden's speech to the Annapolis graduates was about the three traits that are going to be necessary as a foundation for the leaders of the future. And two out of three that you just mentioned, he said, number one is adaptability, but also is respect and inclusion. And I just thought that was very appropriate and reminded me a lot of what you were saying that is the foundation for both Jainism and Hinduism. So thank you so much for giving a deeper perspective.
Thank you, David. This is very interesting, the respect and inclusion. That is the core of Satyam Shivam Sundaram, like you said, and nonviolence, right? And also adaptability. Because if we are, that's a Taoist saying that if you are stiff, the trees that in a big storm last are the one who can swing with are gentle and swing along. The one who stands stiff, they are the first one to fall. And this is the wisdom that is, because that's what the word I use, we go moment to moment. We don't say, oh, I found my purpose, I'm good to go now, I'm set for life, let's go for it. You don't know what your purpose is. I found my purpose, What are you talking about? It's not that. I mean, it's almost adaptability, right? I mean, all the things that we said, Purushartha, is not going to be the same every day. I mean, we are human beings. We are dynamic human beings. We go through all kinds of emotions in a day or in an hour. So I think those are kind of principles, and adaptability comes as a very important part of being in life. How do you constantly questioning, constantly we have opportunities to make decisions, and how do we carry out those? Good to see you, Maurice.
Yes, Veena. Thank you for your wonderful, uplifting and very deep thoughts actually today. Could you say something about, in terms of finding your purpose with these, let's use the modern term of guardrails, or principles, what the role of discontent is? Because when one's finding one's purpose, at least what I found in my life is that while I was onto something I thought was really good, I found that after a while, as all action has its repercussions, it wasn't as good or expansive as I thought. And so I still had this discontent to either want to learn more, a discontent, I think, of the soul. And I wonder if you could speak to that at all relative to these principles.
Like you said, the discontent, that's fundamental to our being as a human being. It's fundamental. I think if the discontent only ends in the state of, what I have read is the liberation, or call enlightenment, whatever that means, just the complete what Buddha had, or Mahavira had, but until then, it's from one discontent to the other. It's you relate to it, right? So like it's the growth of the person. You give a cat a food and they're happy and content. They will just say, okay, I'm happy now, I can just purr. But humans are, one kind of food is not happy enough. And now tomorrow I want a different kind of food. Now I'm a different kind of clothes. I was teasing the other day, I said, if I were like Gandhi, I don't have to worry about my wardrobe next day, or just same white clothes, same, loincloth or dhoti or kurta, just put it on, you go. So that shows that even though he tried to Gandhi, like bring in Gandhi in it, tried to get away from discontent. But the world around us and the situation around us requires us to be always being in that kind of uneasiness, what Buddha called it dis-ease. I call it dis plus ease rather than disease. We're constantly at the sense, if I say, okay, I got my goal, my people are all happy, India has got freedom, but freedom came with a million other problems. So there is always and I think it's a good thing if you have a discontent, because otherwise, unless you're enlightened, yes, then, bow down to you. But it is the really way to grow, real way to go from one thing to another, not dwelling on the discontent, but taking it as a sign, taking it as a nudge, so to speak, just, okay, now what is the next step? What is the next step? How I'm going to grow? And there will be a time will come where, like the Buddha or Mahavira is, you do calm down. And Gandhi happens really right before his assassination. Maybe if you read his literature last year or so, he almost got to that stage where everything was okay in a weird way, that you adapt to it, again, using adaptability, David's word or Biden's word. You just see then bigger patterns in life. It's, I think, looking at the patterns that come, and you then begin to play, then my purpose is kind of becomes a moot point. It just, because no matter what my purpose is, I'm never going to get it, in a way. But it is the journey that matters. It's a journey that is the purpose of really understanding from one step to another. So thank you for asking this great question, Maurice. You guys are so awesome.
I saw David's hand and then Diana's.
Yeah, might we say, might we say that discontent is sort of the soul or the spirit's way of letting us know that we're off course, that we're kind of off our life purpose, kind of urging us to look a little harder?
Well, I had another question.
You do have another question, but let's take David's also. I know you have something to say there.
Yeah. Well, I thought David was, pretty right on, as he often is. That when we speak of divine discontent, it is that it's some recognition in ourselves that there are further steps to be taken, right? That we're not enlightened, we don't understand, we are in ignorance still. We may be harming others, we may be not fulfilling our life's purpose to the extent that we could be, and so that's it's also an aspect of the voice of conscience, right? That it's like a whispering below the audible level of the ear, that that there's more that one could be doing, and more to understand, and a greater service, that one could be of greater service.
Yeah. I think that the discontent is a calling. It's almost like when we feel that there's some more place to go or something to do, it's a calling. I remember in my 40s, I asked, what was I going to do when I grow up? And I seem to still ask that, and I keep surrendering to divine will and divine purpose to show me. But my life, my purpose, and I love what you said, especially with all that's going on in the world right now, because the question I get from my clients is, we don't know what to do. How do we, what can we do with all that's going on in the world? It's so overwhelming. And my purpose has been love and compassion for myself and others. And I had to put for myself, because for many years I knew how to have love and compassion for others, but I wasn't so good with myself. And I found that if I have love and compassion for myself, then my cup is full and I can give out of love and compassion to others, and to do my truth and what is good and with beauty. And I think if I keep that as the base, then what I do in the world, as long as it's love and compassion for myself and others, to me, that's the base of me doing my other work. And especially with everything going on, it's like what I say is all we can do is, yes, we can contribute to different causes, we can march or whatever, but it's also how do we live this holy moment for ourselves and not lose our own joy, and so that we don't live in fear and anger and hatred. And so for me, that's love and compassion for myself and others. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kirk.
Well, that was a great comment too. And it also connects up with my question, very fortunately.
Yeah.
And it's, one of the things I love about your presentation, Veena, is that you gave us principles, right? And they, if one adopts them, you could say they're applicable to all human beings, no matter their station of life, whether they're a plumber or a trash man or housekeeper or whatever. But one of the features of the Buddhist tradition, Northern Buddhist tradition, but also it's found in Theravada, that even higher than the Buddha is the Bodhisattva, right? And that being who has crossed the ocean of samsara, has no need to incarnate, is fully enlightened, and yet returns back into incarnation voluntarily in order to assist and aid others. And it seems like in Hinduism you get, like in the Bhagavad Gita, the idea of the avatar, which seems very similar to the Bodhisattva ideal. But I'm wondering, and in Jainism, the way you described it, it's almost as though that idea of service and aiding and non-harming. It's not just that one is not doing harm, but one is, it seems, actively trying to aid and benefit. So it's just almost like it's part of the practice from the very beginning. Is that right? Or is there also this idea within that tradition of returning, even once one has passed the ocean of samsara? Is there this idea of returning?
That's an excellent question, Kirk. It's really, as I understand, I don't know if the Jainism has the idea of bodhisattva-like thing, but because all theological systems are a bit different, you can't map out exactly, even the Avtara is different from bodhisattva. Because bodhisattva works hard to get to that stage, and they choose not to live in the blissful state of enlightened being. They come back. Avtara, on the other hand, is the already enlightened beings like Krishna and Rama, and they are the one who is the part of the divine plan that they want to come. It's a divine compassion. In Jainism, where is an excellent question, because Jainism, like Buddhism, has no concept of personal God. So the beings that are enlightened beings, they are embodiment of compassion and nonviolence and service to others. So the nonviolence has two parts. One is negative, non-harming, and one is positive, doing acts that stop harming and loving others, being compassionate, being kind. So, but like in any other tradition, Buddhism too, some want to get state of Buddha, like Theravada generally, or other schools too. I want to get out of here. I did it, now I'm going to get enlightened and Bodhi state, I'm done, right? I mean, there are schools, so there are individuals. Same thing is happening in Hinduism. There are people who just say, I want to get my liberation, moksha, I'm done, it's their path now, But Jainism does not have that kind of coming as a reincarnation. Also, some of the Jain schools were, you take care of yourself, purify your soul, because that's your job. So Gandhi came in contact with those Jains who were so much into nonviolence, and that even any actions like Gandhian activism were anti-ahimsa, because they're still in the world, they're still worldly engaged, you are not really taking care of yourself. Gandhi had one time in his ashram, a calf was got very injured. He had to die. It was very suffering. He couldn't move, and Gandhi could not tolerate his suffering. And then he had called the surgeon and had the calf put to sleep, give it euthanized. And there was a big uproar by the Jain community. And they said, you acted out of emotion, not the journey of the soul of the calf. The calf should pay off his karmas and then come back, maybe better life in the next life. So Gandhi had very interesting number of articles and letters and going back and forth. And he came into saying that, why don't you use this nonviolence to help end violence in the world? Let it be the violence of colonial regime, let it be other acts of activism that non-violence can be stopped. Then there was again movement in 20th century. Acharya Tulsi, who was a Jain saint leader, he brought this very comprehensive way to live a life to alleviate the suffering of others. Non-violence as a positive virtue. And if a monk wants to go away and take care of themselves, which are very few between. So most people, householders, you should really think about serving the other, compassion for others, acts of charities. There are a lot of animal shelters because they think that the journey of the soul continues, the animals should be taken care. So even in the United States, the Jains are really working hard to do. All pandemic, they did so much charity, feeding food to poor. So it really has come into a very beautifully ahimsa as care for others, and also environment. Veganism they're pushing for, or the not use of plastic spoons. They have done that. All the Jain Center will not use plastic spoons or plastic. So they're really translating, like each tradition has to translate. Mahayana had to translate the Buddha's teachings. And we are also translating, even my little reflection was translating what the Hinduism gave at the four dharmas. We don't live that way anymore. We don't have box, student, householder and work and all that, right? So we need to reinterpret, rethink in order to our times. And that's happening in big time in Jainism.
Thank you so much, Cliff.
Going back to Kirk's question, I kind of thought part of your question, Kirk, was with a bodhisattva, you have this being of universal compassion who is returning to help others, to help alleviate suffering. But I kind of thought part of your question was also that, that's not just the end of the path, is that the beginning of the path too? This idea of service, of giving, of not thinking about like oneself, but of thinking about others and how one can contribute and help uplift others is how we actually begin. In our culture, it's so individualistic, and we're thinking about rights and, what am I going to do with my life and what's best for me? But I'm wondering if there needs to actually find one's purpose, we need to do some kind of paradigm shift and stop focusing so much on getting ahead or whatever like that, but how can we be a benefit to others? How can we live to benefit mankind is like the most important things to actually begin to find our purpose. And the question you were pondering on, Veena, was why does it seem like some people have no trouble having a sense of purpose in their lives and others struggle with that through their whole life? They just don't seem to ever be able to find some fundamental sense of purpose. And is it about learning that the secret of life is giving? And if we don't understand that that's the secret of life, we're always going to be struggling with ever being able to find the path of purpose.
I think you said it very well. And it is part of what you find in Northern Buddhist tradition, that the bodhicitta is the beginning. It's the wisdom-seeking mind on behalf of aiding other beings. If you leave out that aiding other beings part, then it's no longer bodhicitta. So, yeah, it's very much incorporated at the very first step. So thanks, Cliff. That was a great comment.
I guess I was kind of thinking, is the end in the beginning? I guess is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I've been really struck by what everyone has said. And one of the things that came up for me, including the Bodhisattva path and such, was, in a way, we could say my purpose is to do no harm, to be nonviolent. And that means, yes, I have to have compassion, I have to have understanding, because my mind has to discern what's harmful, and that's not easy to do. You talked about the elephant and all the different ways of perceiving the tail and, all of these things. But even if we put all that together, we don't have the elephant. The elephant has a mind that we can't know. You mentioned humility. There's a certain humbleness about what we can do that does no harm. And on the gross level, we continue to make decisions. And all of the things you mentioned are excellent examples of not doing harm. But then it gets more and more subtle as we get more and more away from what we can sort of directly experience, it seems to me. So, there's a humility involved in the balance between a compassionate heart, which guides our discernment, and what we come up with, which is our understanding. And that moves forward, but it never gets to the end. We never completely understand or completely have compassion because it's too subtle. When you first started talking about karma, it struck me how difficult it is to not harm any being. I think in Jainism, there's the cloud clad, which wear no clothes, which take in no food, because any breath you take will harm.
Nice. Thank you.
We had the proponent of nonviolence himself, Gandhi, saying that life is killing. So that's a profound recognition of the inherent state of harm that is built into the world. Even if you walk around along with your little broom, sweeping away all the little insects that you're still bound to step on something. And anything that we ingest has some sense of life, right? That we are adding into our bodies. So yes, it does seem you're right. This idea of non-harming is so subtle, and it probably has a lot to do, I would think, with intentionality. Marianne, can I?
Veena, I truly honor your philosophy with us today. Thank you so much. Being a vegetarian since the 1980s, I've actually gone vegan in the last 3 years, but I have a question for you, because basically the way that I do my philosophy and how I see nonviolence and being a vegetarian vegan and doing a lot of meditation through the different modalities that Renee has at her center, I really feel that I've really been practicing Hinduism and Jainism. But my question to you is this. I was invited this past week by some friends to attend a trauma workshop because I have colleagues that work in the medical profession. There's a lot of trauma right now, taking care of people with COVID and so on. So I got invited to a trauma workshop, but I was shocked by the doctor, an MD, who taught the class. And what she told us this week is this. She's guiding us through some trauma healing because there's so much trauma going on, the war, the viruses, people losing their jobs. Anyway, bottom line is this. She said there are 3 diets that's not going to help you recover from trauma. The 3 diets are, number 1, fast food prepared diets. Number 2, the vegan diet. And I was shocked when she said it's the vegan diet. And number 3, a low calorie diet. Now, I really was shocked when she said, if you're a vegan, that's not going to help you get over trauma. And this is what she told us. The high quality protein that you need from animal protein does not have the serotonin and dopamine to help you have the building blocks into your brain healing, because your brain trauma, when you suffer from stress or all those traumas that are going on, and you cannot get the level of serotonin and dopamine if you are a vegan. Can you please comment on that?
Wow, Marianne, this is just amazing. Thank you for sharing this conversation. So I don't have the data, right? I will look it up, what's going on with that. But I do see it as the first diet, fast foods, why they are saying that not to do, because it is really is patch up for when we are having anxiety or feeling not well, and maybe people can eat French fries or just quick food or burger or whatever, and it does not make us feel good, right? Afterwards, it just doesn't do well for our health. I mean, we all know that. And then it's kind of addictive. That diet, now they have done studies, chips are as addictive as something, as we will say, substances. They can be the way they create these foods, fast foods, are something in them, they're addictive. So I can see that. And the low calorie diet also I can understand, because it becomes anorexia, or it's just letting go things, and your body needs to nourished. But the second one, vegan, I am thinking about, and I'm not just going to discount this person who is telling you in the workshop. I don't think, Marianne, that people like us who know how to prepare vegan foods, how to balance our protein in the vegan food, how to get all building blocks that we need for our health, it works. But a lot of people don't know how to do vegan, and they get really, I think the protein is a different question. And like I said, I have not done studies, so I won't comment on that right now, on that idea. But in Indian traditions, on the Indian subcontinent, the meat was not part of the food. Eggs and meats were not, because India was so warm culture, very hot environment. People didn't eat much meat. Then the dairy was part of the life. I mean, Lord Krishna stealing makhan, the butter, and always the dairy was a sacred food in Hinduism, with bananas, coconut, and the dairy was really, really important food. The veganness is not, the dairy is, some will say the cow's milk you shouldn't have because it's not the same as, humans should not ingest it. But generally, in the Indian traditions, the cow's milk was really good for us, and the cows were not exploited. They were not harmed. We had a cow in our yard, in our little house, and the cow was in the middle. She was the princess of our house. We took care of her. We gave her the best. We loved her. We named her children, and we never sent her to slaughterhouse afterwards. It just, but now things, the factory, or the dairy industry. I just visited at Fresno State 2 weeks ago. My students took me to the dairy industry because I was teaching Jainism. And they were saying that the veganism is wrong, and there's no harm it's done to the animals. But then when I went, they immediately separate the baby from the cow, and they put it out there with a little bin. So it's so on and so forth, right? So I think, Marianne, that you take everything in the context, rather than saying, they can make a categorical statement. People have, first time I told them I was never ate meat in my life, they goes, how can you be so tall? And how can you be so smart, or would have PhDs or degrees? Because, oh yeah, I said, because of that I have, because I don't have to worry about, all this kind of heavy food. So I think it's cultural. It is because in the West, we are raised with meat, and our bodies are also different because we are raised with that. Perhaps that the person was addressing to that. So we have to be many-sidedness of the truth. We should give this person, say, you might be right in your own ways, but we have our own opinion. So I hope this helps.
Yeah. In terms of finding life purpose, we really do need to allow people to find it for themselves and how they're going to move toward it, don't we? And I do recall hearing that Jesus said that it's not so much what goes into our mouths that is important as what comes out of them. And I think that for me helps give a little perspective when I'm making those kind of life choices, such as of diet.
And let me comment just one on Cliff's one sentence. The duty versus rights. And Gandhi was really, he did not endorse the UN Charter of Human Rights. He always was on what can I do rather than what can I have. When we can do, then we can have as well. But the word dharma is sustaining, is holding, it is harmony. So whatever that makes us feel harmonious, makes us feel sustained, makes us feel right, and that is the purpose. And for that will be each person's purpose. Each moment, each hour, each day, each situation might be different.
Yes, thank you very much for a wonderful talk, Veena. Just to go back to the Jain Tirthankaras, I've had Jain's friends say, well, unlike the Bodhisattvas, they will not be back. They are ideals like Bahubali or Mahavira. And could it be that even the ideal Tirthankara, perhaps he works on another plane or she works on another plane? I understand that one, at least in the one of the Jain traditions, was a woman. I don't know if that's true or not. But does one have to come back in physical incarnation to really help humanity? Because the Jains were adamant at saying, oh no, these Tirthankaras they have forded the river, they will never be back. So what do you think of that?
Like I said, that's part of the theology. That is the, once you are liberated, you're liberated. But they serve through exemplary, they're exemplary. And that's what their belief is. And so that's their belief is, that once you are liberated, you can't, once you are out of this world, you don't come back. And another way, like Buddha would say, you can't step in the same river twice. Work on the other plane could be, or who knows how these journeys work. So thank you, Judy. Good to see you.
Another perspective, we tend to focus on finding, searching, and we know people who do a lot of searching, research, whatever. But maybe some of us aren't so good at a proactive approach. Maybe looking back, what we see is opportunity came in front of us, and we saw something, or we had something made us kind of go with that opportunity. And then that led to a bigger picture, that led to, because ultimately you want your purpose to include, everybody, and you want everything in the world to go better. But I just wanted to just say that sometimes it's just the way you respond to opportunities that seem to have come to you, of course, under karma. And I want to thank you for such a clear, relevant, inspiring talk. I really did find it easy to listen to and lots of thought to take with me.
Great to see you. And just want to add one sentence. You're absolutely right. And I think it's never a one-way process. It's always dynamic, always interacting. And I think that's why what's my purpose maybe is we have to ask a different question. Even the question also is linear, and it is pressure, puts pressure on us. So I think it really is that somebody asked Gandhi, what's your purpose? He said, remember God and serve his creation, period. So I think Clifton like that because it's just very, and what is God? For atheist is a truth. What's your nature? Everybody has the idea of Satyam Shivam Sundaram, and that is the divine expressions. So thank you, Carolyn, for lovely remarks.
I think we will take that lovely thank you from Carolyn as our vote of thanks to Veena Howard today. And we're all just so thankful to her for giving us such a great start to a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mahalo.
Thank you, Veena. It's very fine.
Everyone here.
Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate it.